Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
You seem to still be up there somewhere.
Maybe I am. There are flying saucers.
Supposing there are Martians or something in there.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm itsasherz and this is...
Tobias.
Tobias, how was your weekends?
How was my weekend? I think it was pretty good. What the hell did I do all weekend? Every time. It's a surprise to me. As though, yeah. And so I had no idea this question was coming. Oh man, I hate being put on the spot. No, I don't know. I had a nice little weekend. It was Father's Day, and on Sunday, and so we went out to my parents' house and saw some family and hung out, and that was a good time. But prior to that, I just I didn't do a whole hell of a lot. Mostly just getting some writing done and getting ready for Haunted America, of course, which is coming up at the end of this month, the 27th and 28th of June in Alton, Illinois. So if you've never been to Haunted America, of course, make your plans now to go. I believe the early bird pricing for tickets ends on, I want to say, the 22nd. So don't take my word for it, though. Check online just to make sure. But you can get tickets cheaper if you buy early online rather than trying to get them at the door. So definitely do that. So I've been getting ready for that, which reminds me, I've actually got something that I want to talk about a little later that is kind of tangentially involved with Haunted America. It follows the theme of my workshop, but I don't want to get too distracted. Otherwise, I played some Traveler. I can't not mention my nerd stuff. Yeah, we played some Traveler on Saturday. And then, get this, Amazon had the audacity to only deliver one card binder and one sleeve of Dragon Shield matte no glare card sleeves for my Daggerheart cards when I needed the full 3 boxes of sleeves. So then I had to wait and I couldn't sleeve all my cards. And I think you can guess how that went down. No. It was bedlam. So
did you make another firm phone call this weekend? Is that or is that in the works?
I was pretty hot about it. No, I got right on that app and I talked to their AI chatbot and I told them in no uncertain terms that they needed to get those boxes of Dragon Shield matte no glare card sleeves to me ASAP, and they did. They actually showed up today, so I'm pretty excited. Yeah, because there's this game Daggerheart that I'm pretty excited about. It looks pretty fun. It's a tabletop role playing game. Fellow nerds out there are probably going to know what I'm talking about, and it comes with a bunch of cards, and I got to put the cards in sleeves or something because otherwise. My friends are a bunch of fucking savages and they're going to get their sticky Cheeto fingers all over my precious cards. If I don't have some kind of protective cover on there, they'll be ruined. They will no longer be in collectible condition. So
you can't have
you
that.
can't have that. No, you can't. That's basic stuff. That's nerdery 101 right there. So I was happy to see that. So I'm going to spend some time later this week, in between whatever weird paranormal stuff I'm doing, sleeving the rest of those cards and putting them in my binder. So good times.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah. I know. I know what you're thinking. Whoa, Tobias, how's your heart? Are you okay? That sounds like a lot of excitement. Maybe you want to slow it down a little bit. But don't worry. I can handle it.
Oh my God. You might even crack open a Mountain Dew while you're at it.
I might. I have some diet Mountain Dews in my fridge.
Ooh.
But yeah, those are a weekend treat for me. So we'll see. Yeah,
sounds very riveting.
This is my life. I know. The thing is, I've always been this way. Like there is no point in my life where I like aged out of being cool. I've been like this since I was in grade school. So it's just who I am. There's
Calm
no
down
point.
there. Save some pussy for the rest of us. Okay.
See, you would think that I would not do well, but I do okay. So I'm not I'm not worried about that, because you know who is weirder than you think, and definitely more sexually available and interesting than you might suspect? Nerds, by like a lot.
True.
So I'm just saying. I'm married now, so I don't I don't need to get into it, but like, because that's the other thing. You can be like tall, athletic, whatever, and still be a nerd, right? Like it's not like they have a nerd detector at the door to the gym and like where they won't let you in when you show up, right? Like you can still go. So, you do that and you like nerdy stuff, which probably means you're smart, which probably means that you're not an asshole, or at least like you're aware of things. Like, for instance, few women, especially women in like the alternative space, or like nerdy women, if you know about women's issues, which everybody should, obviously, because like they're important societal issues, but if you know about them, man, yeah, you will be like, know about them and care and can discuss them. And that is a huge turn on for big section of the population. So you'd be surprised is what I'm saying. Like, you can do okay as a nerd. It's true. I mean, it helps to be born tall.
Now.
But yeah.
That's right. I'm just saying.
Fair. Yeah, fair enough. I feel like I talked about that for way too long now. This is another reason I'm just glad my mom doesn't listen to this. She doesn't need to know this.
She would. Yeah, that's, well, fair point. Fair point. Your mom is a saint, by the way. I mean, I just can't say it enough. So I am also glad she doesn't listen to the show.
Yes.
Well, wonderful. It sounds like you had a great weekend.
Yeah, worked out.
Super proud of you. I've been, oh man, I've had a lot going on lately. Boy. So we did it. We added another family member. We got a new kitten over the week.
I saw that.
And he doesn't open his eyes ever. I don't know if he is just chronically sleepy or what the deal is. But no, it's been fun and also not fun at the same time, because kittens, well, they're babies, and he's got a lot to learn. And I would love to get a solid night of sleep, but here I am. So it's been super exciting. He's supposed to be my daughter's cat, but he's in love with me, and I can't like make him not be. Like, it's, what am I supposed to do, right? No, not let him love on me. That's not, you can't do that to a kitten. He's so dang cute. What? So that's been exciting. Like I said, I haven't been able to sleep much because he has to sleep on me. My 15-year-old cat, he's doing okay with it. He's not in love with him, but he stands his ground very well and doesn't hide or anything. So it's going okay. It's going okay.
Good.
I think we'll probably keep him for a while. Now I will say, I don't want to name names, but I really didn't want to get a white cat again. Really didn't. Because most of my wardrobe is black.
Right.
And, I wanted to maybe get a black cat or not a black cat, just not a white cat. But the heart wants what it wants. And so we chose this one. But I wasn't going to. When we walked in that day, I kind of had two in mind that I was looking at, a black cat and then this one, who he's a rescue from a hoarder breeder house, where they were breeding ragdolls and Siamese. So he's both. And just in case for people who haven't seen my cat, he very much looks like a Siamese cat. So he's very white. But I was going to walk out with neither cat because it was like the black one just didn't really like us very much. And, he just didn't want to go to my house. So that's fine. And then the white one, he was totally cool, but I didn't want a white cat. Well, the lady was like, well, I have another rescue that wants to pay me $160 so that they can take him and adopt them out because and really is that rescuing? Because what they're essentially saying is that they're going to pay you $160 and then they're going to turn around and upcharge that price because it's a desirable cat breed. Like to whoever. Right. So at that point, you're not rescuing and adopting cats out. You're straight up selling cats.
Right.
And I don't know. That gave me the ick. I've had such issue with the shelters and the rescues and stuff in this entire process. And it sucks because who hurts from that is the animals that need rescued.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
There's some really fucked up unethical practices going on. And I just want things to be better. And I don't know what to do about it because now it's like, I can't even trust to donate to small rescues and stuff because it's been just so shitty. I don't know. It's been rough. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution is there, but put a scope on some of these places. And I think I probably will be a bit more outspoken of it the further I kind of get away from the process. But I don't know. God forbid something happened to my poor kitten and then I try to go rescue again and then I'm fucking barred everywhere because I spoke out against what's going on. But here we are.
Yeah, well, you're not wrong. I mean, there are some pretty good places by where I live, and Emily and I are generally aware of them. And so it's not like we're rescuing animals constantly, right? Because, knock on wood, our animals seem to be living very long lives, which we love.
Sure.
Wouldn't have it any other way. But we do know, where we would probably go. But I've heard a lot of stories like this, and it seems everywhere, and you're right. Like it's a huge bummer. It bums me out. I hate hearing about it because it shouldn't be about the cat trade. That's that if that's why you're here doing this, go do anything else. It should be about rescuing these animals. And there are so many animals that need homes, so many dogs and cats, and so many weird barriers between people who want to adopt them and these rescue agencies for some reason. And sometimes it's like maybe they're trying to do it for the right reasons, but they've got really weird invasive practices, like they want to come judge your house and shit. Like, I'm not ever going to agree to that. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to. This is America. You don't need to see my house. Get fucked. And it's a nice house and we're proud of it. But at the same time, no, you can't just come in and judge my house. Yeah, it's just, there's something dehumanizing about that to me where I'm like, no, people should not have to agree to that shit. If you can pass even a cursory background check and you have the money, I see no reason why, after obviously a sufficient amount of education. So you have to know the animal. You should know if it's going to get along with you. You should know if it's going to get along with any other pets or whatever you have. I'm not saying that you don't have to ask basic fucking questions, but some of this really weirdly invasive, like these really weirdly invasive roadblocks that are set up, I just don't get it. It really, really boggles the mind, because it seems like the exact opposite of what they're trying to do, or at least it accomplishes the exact opposite. And then, then you have the people who are unethical and are trying to make money, or, the first dog I ever rescued, I felt like I was rescuing him from the rescue, because he was a Great Pyrenees, and we ended up driving all the way down to Missouri from Wisconsin for him, because Great Pyrenees, they're a fairly popular breed and they're not super common. And so that's what my girlfriend at the time really wanted. And I was like, okay, well, great. Like, we can make this happen. And that's when we found it. We drove down there, and all of the dogs were kind of kept in these huts, like outside, and they were all filthy. Like, this dog looked like he hadn't been washed ever in his whole life. His fur was like just caked with mud, and it was just gross. And I felt obviously like we came down there for him, and I wasn't leaving, especially at that point, I wasn't leaving without him. And we got him home and everything, got him cleaned up. It like turned out he had roundworms, and there was a bunch of dogs on this property, and I don't know. I can't say that they would have been better off, on their own, because domesticated dogs do not do well. Like, they don't know how to hunt. They might be able to scavenge garbage, but like, that's not a life. But like, that rescue sucked, and they were barely better off there than they would have been just having to dig through dumpsters.
Yeah.
So it's just gross. I hate to see it.
Well, and it's sad because the person that was there physically with me in the room telling me about the $165 deal, whatever it was, she was like talking about she didn't want to do that because, she doesn't discriminate between this cat and this cat and this cat. They all need homes,
Good.
And that's the thing that sucks, is because you do have people that are like genuinely care, and they are genuinely trying,
Right.
but they're not the ones that actually run the rescues. They're the ones volunteering their time to help out with the rescues. And so, they're not all bad people, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Like, that definitely have good intentions. Like MUFON, right? We got a lot of people that are MUFON investigators, or some people that start as MUFON investigators, right? And you got great intentions, but MUFON itself sucks, right?
Agreed. Yeah, individual MUFON field investigators can be great. But yeah, the organization as a whole, I think, leaves a lot to be desired.
Right. So it's tough because it's like, I want to call out these people, but then I don't want to deter people from rescuing animals or adopting animals, because again, at the end of the day, if I do call them out, the people that or the ones that suffer most are the animals, and there's no point in that. So anyway, he's doing great though. He's integrated into our family very well so far. We're definitely still getting to know each other, but he's not hiding at all, and he's very, very calm for the most part. So it's been working out. So
okay.
And then I also, because right after I adopted a kitten, I decided, what a great time to leave the state, right? Just leave him home by himself, because I'm a great pet owner. And I did. I left the state, went with my daughter and a group of friends to Point Pleasant, West Virginia. They wanted me to tour them down there. And my daughter, she's never been down there and run the gamut of, the museum, the statue, the pizza, all that. And so I thought it'd be a great opportunity to take her now that she's a little bit older and kind of appreciates that stuff a little bit more. So that was fun. It was a fun bonding moment for her and I. And, as well as taking those people down there to, explore a little bit. I had a great time with my friends. I will say there was a person in the group who they really like the paranormal. They're super into it, and that's great, but like, we're not the same. And like, what I mean by that is, like, every little bit they could feel something. There's definitely something going on here. And they had made mention of, like, really liking the Warrens, and yeah. Yeah. we're not the same. And it's tough because, what I do and all this stuff, I mean, there really is a gray area. For instance, I'll share this really cool quick experience. So, as we're going up there, part of like the trip, especially if it's people I know, usually, I'm driving with them, right, to tour them, and part of the trip is for me to like tell the story, right? Tell everybody what's going on, tell them my story, and why I got into it and stuff, really, build up that momentum. And so I was just telling them, hey, things get weird down there. And they do, genuinely, for real, things get fucking weird. Like, as soon as you cross the bridge from Ohio into West Virginia, I don't know what it is, but everything just changes. And it could be, psychosomatic, right? I'm leaving Ohio and that's exciting. But it happens every single time. And, but I just tell them, hey, things get weird. Pay attention, pay attention to the small stuff, because I believe these are, again, very personal experiences. I don't think you're going to go down to Point Pleasant and see a Mothman, but I do think that these are very personal experiences, and I think that there's some messages to be had in that. And so while I'm saying that, I'm like, but don't hyper focus on it, right? I said, don't look at your phone and be like, oh my God, it says 111. That means something. And the one girl, as soon as I said it, looks at her phone and holds it up, and guess what time it is? It's 111.
Well, wait, hold on a sec. Wait, I'm getting a message.
There's a message. Yeah.
It's from Mothman. He's saying that girl's full of shit. And that's not a message. It's just a coincidence. Oh, Mothman is using a lot of swears. I can't repeat this. Okay. Well, I'm shutting this down. That's enough messaging from Mothman for now. Good Lord. He has a filthy mouth.
But okay, so in all fairness, it was 111, and I'll tell you, that shit drives me wild. I love that. That gets me going. I was way hyped up. I was like, fuck yeah, what's 111 mean? I look it up. Oh, new beginnings? Fuck yeah, that's me. That's my life right now. And whether or not it's significant in the grand scheme of things, or whether or not it's significant to me, that's the part that matters. But so you can take that and you can run all the way into it, right? You can fully throw yourself into that experience and go, holy shit, it's significant, right? It's synchronicity and this is serious. Or you could be like, that's kind of neat. Maybe I should pay attention. And this girl, listen, she just ran with it. And I was like, bitch, that's my 111. That's not your 111. That's mine. Okay. Stop trying to steal my 111. Can't you share it? No, it's mine.
I shouldn't have to share it. It's my new beginning.
It's mine, right? That was my 111, But anyway, we went down to the TNT area, and she was like insistent that like in the igloo, which is you've been in the igloos, like paranormal aside, it's a crazy experience. It's fucking cool.
Yeah,
and
pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean it's really neat. And the girl's like, she was scared to death to go in it. I just walk right in. I've been down there probably 100 times.
Who cares?
No big deal.
Did she not grow up smoking weed in like abandoned factories and shit?
No, probably
like the rest of us, like normal people.
She was like, we can't go in there. I'm like, we're going in there. I mean, we came all the way here just to do this. We're going in there.
That's weird. All right.
So she was afraid. She goes in. First, she's like, oh my God, because she's on her camera and she's recording. She's like, I'm getting crazy orbs. Okay. Listen, it was 85 degrees that day. Okay. You're on the river. It had just stormed. The humidity is fucking unreal. It's not orbs. It's fucking fog from the condensation. You're in a fucking concrete igloo. Like, it's not Anyway, she was insistent there was a bunch of dead ghosts in there, and
there's a fetid swamp right there.
Yeah, right there.
I know for a fact is chock full of bugs. Especially like this time of year, all the mosquitoes are starting to hatch and shit. There's bugs everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, of course. That's not, those aren't orbs.
Yeah. So it was, I'm just like, and I said right on her video, because I think she's going to post it on TikTok. I'm like, that's just fog. It's humid as fuck. The air's thick, lady. It's normal, but she was very insistent. My daughter, though. So me and my daughter, before we went, we kind of, we tried to plan it a little bit. I asked her if she wanted to bring any props to take a picture with Mothman, especially his butt, right? Mothman butt picture.
Of course.
We didn't bring anything this time around, maybe next time, but we talked about the TNT area, and I was kind of telling her about the experience of it all. And everything like reverbs back to you like 3 times in there. It's just crazy. It sounds crazy. It's really interesting. And I told her, I was like, what would be a great idea? I'm like, we should go down there and just stand right in the center of it and just fucking rip ass, just fart. And my child did it. She went down to the TNT bunker, went stood in the middle and ripped ass, and it was glorious. The best.
What did it sound like? Did it have a cool echo?
Oh yeah. Somebody got it on video. So
nice.
I'm so excited.
That's time well spent right there.
That is perfect, so I recommend it. If you're going to go all the way down there, like even if you're with a group of people, don't be shy. Like now is the time, let it fly, hold it in for that moment and go down there and rip ass in the TNT igloo. It's surreal.
It's amazing. I've never been prouder of anyone than I am of your daughter right now for doing that.
Everybody was so excited. I'll say that, like the whole group was like so happy that she did it. So it was a great time. It was a good weekend. Then I spent Sunday recovering, and now Monday I'm here. So that's what I got going on.
All right. Sounds like a pretty good weekend. I hope your friend doesn't listen to the show there. But if she does, I would just like to point out that was a message from Mothman and definitely not me. So you can't be mad at me. You got to be mad at Mothman.
I had never met her before. This was the first time I met her. So she's friends of the actual friends that were there. And they're all very of sound mind people. I think they did all kind of had their own little experience, right? I think at minimum, just getting away from Ohio to go do something mindless, like spend the day touring Point Pleasant. It's good for the soul, right? I think that they had a genuinely good time that felt freeing to them. I don't know her, but she was okay, but we don't jive, and that, and it happens, right? I'm not going to convince her of anything because she's not in it for the reality. She's in it for the entertainment, and that's just the way it is sometimes. So I'm not going to try.
A lot of people are like that, which is fine. Hopefully they still get something out of what we do because it's entertaining enough for them. But I'm the same way. I don't really vibe with people like that super well because whether or not something is real does matter to me.
Right.
And it just is what it is. Like I have said many times, I've been this way my whole life. Like that's just who I am. I am a nerd who takes everything he's into way too seriously. And that is a very specific type of person. And I get along with other people who are the same, basically. So yeah, I mean, I don't there's no good way to put it, but like it's basically just like I don't vibe well with casuals. You know what I mean? Like I just can't. It's fine. Like I can get along with anybody. Like we can talk about sports or the weather. It doesn't matter. We can talk about horror movies. Great. But as soon as we start getting into something like this, it's difficult for me to hold my tongue. Right. So
it's for me, it's the attitude of like, you act like for a fact what you're talking about. And It's like, for me, having my 111 experience, I was open-minded to the possibility that it was strange. I know that this was strange and that's where I'm going to bury my flag. So when they talk with such confidence as if I know for a fact there was a bunch of dead people in there, and it's like, well, who died here though? Like, who the fuck is haunting this? I mean, like, this was a storage container for munitions. Or the factory workers? They were fucking a mile away at the factory. They weren't even here.
It's the ghost of World War II dynamite. Woo! What the hell even is that? It doesn't make sense. And see, that's what I'm talking about. Only a filthy casual would even think that in the first place. Anybody who knows shit like about fuck would already understand that we don't know anything.
Right.
And so like at best, they would be like, oh, this is potentially weird. Or they would be like, you know what? I'm just gonna I'm gonna pretend like this is real because I'm gonna see if that leads to other weird stuff, like, and that's all fine. I can get down with that. But you're right, like the people who just seem to act like they know. I'm like, you don't know anything. You know less than anyone I've ever met.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
It's, and it's like when I tell you that I am a professional at this, not expert, guys. I didn't say expert. Put your fucking pitchforks down. But when I tell you that I professionally do this and you just override everything that I say or attempt to, we're not going to be good friends. Like, I'm sorry, but it's not the way that works. So I don't know. We'll see if she comes along. I mean, all the other people are interested in doing other, paranormal, spooky adventures, and I'm down to do them. But I don't know if she's going to be involved or not. Probably. So we'll see how that goes. But
oh boy, I see. Now she's going to listen to this, and it's going to be super awkward.
No, it's not, because I'll just tell her, just like I'll tell anybody else.
I'm just kidding.
About themselves.
What's going to be horrible is I'll meet her someday, and then it'll be really awkward.
It'll be really awkward. She's like, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you're like, oh no, blah, blah, blah. Oh no, it's me, the Mothman. I have another message for you. Go away.
Right? I'm pretty sure it was Mothman that called you a filthy casual, so you can't be mad at me.
I was just channeling him, I don't like it. If Andy Colvin can do it, I can do it.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I don't have any news this week. Whatever. It is what it is. You got a news?
I do have a news. It's interesting stuff. So it's a continuation of an earlier story, but what it comes down to is Louisiana has joined Tennessee and Florida in passing legislation banning chemtrails.
What?
So
okay.
you're not allowed to be spreading your deep state liberal chemtrails over Louisiana. So don't even try it, Illuminati. What's really weird about this is, again, they're not even the first state to do it. Tennessee and Florida have both already passed legislation banning the same thing. And there's like a dozen states total that have introduced similar legislation. Like I remember, oh boy, just off the top of my head, like Pennsylvania, New York, Arizona. I don't remember the other ones, but there's a bunch of states that are banning chemtrails. And what they do is nobody ever uses the word chemtrail, right? What they do instead is they try to they use subterfuge, right? Like they try to obfuscate it using other language. Like they'll talk about like solar geoengineering. So like this Louisiana bill, similar to the other states' legislation. So again, like they're all doing this. It focuses on the environmental impact of so-called chemtrails. So according to the bill, no person shall intentionally inject, release, apply, or disperse by any means a chemical compound, substance, or apparatus into the atmosphere within the borders of this state for the express purpose of affecting the temperature, weather, climate, or intensity of sunlight. So this is a whole this is a whole specific subset of chemtrail, right? That involves something called, as I mentioned, solar geoengineering. And it ostensibly refers to proposed approaches to combat climate change by reflecting solar radiation back into space. Although it seems to me that it's really just an attempt by these legislators to avoid being labeled conspiracy theorists, because there are connections, definitely, between chemtrails and this idea of concern over solar geoengineering. Like these exist in the same space. So the connections, actually, I found a good article for this. It was written by David Keith's research group for Harvard University, and it's just called Chemtrails Conspiracy Theory. And in it, this research group states, because of the apparent similarities between the proposed implementation methods for solar geoengineering, such as injecting reflective particles into the stratosphere, and the alleged methods for producing chemtrails, people have linked the notion of chemtrails to the study of solar geoengineering. However, the article continues, we are confident that there is no currently active program to actually test or implement solar geoengineering, and furthermore, we have not seen any credible evidence that chemtrails exist. If we did see any evidence that governments were endangering their own citizens in the manner alleged in the chemtrails conspiracy, we would be eager to expose and stop any such activities, because of fucking course they would. But most importantly, what this helps establish is that link that I'm talking about. So do not be fooled when politicians say, oh, so we're really just concerned about solar geoengineering, because the way they talk about this is how you talk about chemtrails. Like the person who introduced this for the state of Louisiana, State Representative Kimberly Landry Coates. I think it's Coates. If it's not, whatever. I don't live there. So what's she going to do? Anyway, when she's talking about this, she warns skeptics to start looking up and says stuff like, I'm really worried about what is going on above us and what is happening. And we as Louisiana citizens did not give anyone the right to do this above us. So what do you think she's talking about if she's not talking about chemtrail conspiracy theory here? Because we know there aren't organized solar geoengineering projects. This only exists in the most speculative terms in science, right? Like it's one proposed way to deal with climate change. So this very clearly to me is several states so far with who knows how many more, with something like this in the pipeline, capitulating to conspiracy theorists for some fucked reason, because that's just where we're at as a country right now, which I got to tell you is not great, bordering on super depressing. So I don't know. Thoughts?
I mean, I'm just really disappointed because what the fuck am I supposed to do on my weekdays now? If I can't go spray my fucking chemtrails across Louisiana,
right?
It's ridiculous. I thought this was America, where I could do stuff like that. I don't know.
Because you start in Louisiana, then you skate over Tennessee and you hit Florida on your way out,
Right.
But now it's banned in all 3 states.
Right. They're taking away my right to have a good time. It's terrible. No, I'm just, how can you enforce something like this? Because first of all, it's not chemtrails, but it's, here we are. So what? They're going to see water vapor in the air. They're going to be like, arrest that guy.
Honestly, that is the question that every serious person, like every non-moron, has asked. And the reality is it's unenforceable. They're not going to enforce it. There usually isn't even anything in the legislation that that allows for any form, like any punitive element, right? So it literally just seems to exist to attract conspiracy theorists, just to be like, hey, vote for me, you mouth-breathing idiots. Look at this thing I did that seems to agree with that stupid shit you believe. So, yay.
And
yay, America.
I guess maybe not so much our tax dollars, but our tax dollars as people funded this shit. We funded this. We funded this to go into effect.
Yeah, are you telling me that these fucking legislators don't have anything better to do than this? Because that's sad. Those states, not that the state I live in is perfect, but these, like the states passing this legislation, are also far from perfect, much farther from perfect than we are even. So they have other shit they should be doing. They really do. There are bigger fish to fry here.
Yeah, people love to bitch about like frivolous lawsuits. What about frivolous legislation? Shouldn't we make a big deal over that? I know it's a crazy concept, but the reality is, and guys, listen, I don't trust the government. Fuck them. But chemtrails aren't real. Like that's not a thing.
Right.
It's just not. And I know that you think it is because you saw some streaks in the sky. But it's still not a thing. They weren't spraying you with chemicals. Not that I put it past the government to conduct some, experimental something or the other on everybody, but like if they want to do that, I hate to break it to you, but they're gonna do it. And there's not anything you or I can do about it, even if they outlaw it. It's the government.
Right.
I mean, they're breaking their own rule. I mean, that's like expecting the police to behave.
Yeah, right. Like the really sad thing about it is we know the government has done similar things in the past. And by the government, like that's another thing. We got to stop referring to the government just as the government.
The government,
because it's not a monolithic entity, right? If anything, like the United States government is much more similar to like a series of loosely connected like feudal states. You know what I mean? Where sometimes they get along, sometimes they don't. They have varying levels of communication. So anyway, it's normally some kind of intelligence agency or something doing shit like this. But we know that they have done stuff like that in the past. There was one famous case, trying to remember. Oh, yep. Operation Sea Spray. So this was 1950. The U.S. Navy decided that it was going to run this secret biological warfare experiment by spraying a bunch of bacteria over San Francisco Bay to see who got sick. I mean, and they absolutely 100 fucking percent did this. And so we know that it's not outside of the realm of possibility for the government, and by the government, again, I mean specific agencies within the United States government, normally the military or some kind of intelligence agency, in this case, the U.S. Navy, to experiment on the population this way, but it's not happening at the scale that chemtrail conspiracy theorists believe. There simply isn't evidence for it, frankly. And that's what it comes down to. We know Operation Sea Spray happened because there's evidence. What we don't have evidence of is some kind of widespread conspiracy in any government agency or military or whatever that involves spraying chemicals over the entirety of North America or whatever through, I don't know, jet engines or wherever people think that it's coming from. So if you have evidence of this, like, and I mean actual evidence, guys, not some fucking shit you saw on YouTube, like actual evidence, something that would stand up, then I would be very interested in that, because there is nothing I would put past the military or any intelligence agency as far as what I think that they're capable of doing. Like I wouldn't be surprised by fucking anything. But we don't have evidence for it, and we can't just go believing things without evidence, because that is what stupid people do. And, if you choose to be stupid, it just makes you more easily controlled by these people who don't like the military industrial complex and intelligence agencies that do not have your best interests at heart. So just saying, hear me out. This is why you shouldn't believe things without evidence.
Because I cannot stress this enough. If the government wants to do shit like that, if the man wants to do shit like that, you're not going to stop them, you citizen with your Second Amendment rights, from doing whatever the fuck they want to do. And that's the reality of it at the end of the day. That's the way it is. We're not stronger than them, but
I am.
maybe between Tobias and Nate, right? We have an entire army there. We might have a fighting chance.
That's right.
But Tobias doesn't like stupid people, and so he's not going to fight.
I like him. I just feel bad for him.
I don't feel bad for them. It's a choice. It's their choice.
Yeah, well, I mean, some people just...
Unless it's not a choice. In that case, that's different. They're not necessarily stupid.
Right.
They have anyway, you get what I'm saying.
Sure. No, I want to go really in depth in the socioeconomic factors that contribute to education and stupidity in this. No, of course, we don't have time to talk about that. No, I just honestly, if I could win anybody over, I will. I have... Throughout my life, I have believed in shit that is not true, and that is how I've got to where I am today. Is recognizing and learning from those beliefs as they come up, right? And everybody should be willing to do that, and in turn, everybody should be willing to allow for people to do that. So anybody out there who is just like, I really fell down this chemtrail rabbit hole, but honestly, you know what? Like, there isn't really good evidence for this. Maybe some of these people on YouTube are mistaken. Hey, great, welcome. There's plenty of room for you to come over here and sit with us. Like, that's fine, but you got to do it.
Question everything, and what that means. When I tell you to question everything, is to even question the stuff that you want to believe in. I mean, you should. And sometimes it's just not that way. So I don't know. This is just
right.
Like I said, I'm disappointed that my plans are now ruined. So clearly I'm bitter, and I'm going to try to convince you guys that it's not real, because I don't want any more if another fucking state imposes on my right to spread chemtrails. Okay, we're going to have an issue.
It's true.
Just saying. All right. Well, speaking of shit that's not real, how about giants, huh?
How about them giants?
How about them giants? Okay, this is a big topic, a big divided topic. I feel like when it comes to, the paranormal, most of the time, specifically cryptozoology, it seems to be more heavily ingrained in, but just the occult in general, I think also, it's a big topic. So much like our alien abduction episode, this is just a general discussion about the general topic of giants. We're probably not going to get too heavy into too many specific cases. We may do that later, but I mean, this is almost a solved episode, for real, So with that being said, going into it up front, Tobias, what's your history with giants?
So next to me, right now, I have my copy of the Abrams art book, Giants. If you're not familiar with this particular one, you may be familiar with the book Gnomes. And if you're not familiar with that, you may be familiar with Fairies, which was illustrated by Brian Froud and Alan Lee. So this particular work, it, however, is called Giants, and it's one of my three favorites. The other two, of course, being Gnomes and Fairies, and it is a beautifully illustrated book, which is why I love it so much. But it is all about giants, and it's pretty much European giants and folklore surrounding giants in Western Europe and Northern Europe, and it's written to be very approachable for kids, especially because I was introduced to this particular book as a kid. It's one of those where I got it from the library probably 50 times when I was a kid. And then it wasn't until I was an adult that I actually was able to buy it for myself. But it's great, and I love it. And it was my introduction to giants and being interested in stories of giants, which of course led into things like Norse mythology. Like the Germanic peoples had giants in their stories. And what's interesting about that, of course, is that Jotun, the word for giant in Norse, right, isn't it doesn't necessarily mean giant like we translate it as giant, but they're not always that big. So maybe ogre or troll or just like monster would work a lot of the time. I'm digressing here quite a bit though. So I'm going to stop talking about that pretty soon. But no, like that was my introduction, and that led to all kinds of other stuff and reading about giants and other cultures. And generally I find them to be fascinating. I think we all, at a minimum, everybody, okay, I shouldn't say everybody, because people are going to yell at me because this is like a Christian normative perspective. But a lot of people, many of us, grew up hearing about David and Goliath, right? Like everybody's familiar with David and Goliath. Damn it, I did it again. Not everybody, but people some people I know grew up familiar with that story. It's a pretty common story, right? And
Sure.
So giants, they're a part of culture. They're a part of many, if not most, if not every culture in the world. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, giants are like genuinely one of the oldest pieces of lore out there, right? It's this idea of gigantic beings has been around forever. And when we look at every culture, they seem to have some potential story of giants. Even dating back, I kind of went not too deep dive into it, but Greek mythology, right? Literally had the giants or the gigantus, right? Which I love this. I have to read this directly. These beings were born from the blood of Uranus. And I love that. I love that for you. I love that for you and Uranus.
Might want to get that looked at.
Sounds like a wild weekend. That's good for you.
I guess.
Obviously it's Uranus. Okay, I'm not stupid. I know I'm from Ohio and I fucking inhale chemtrails throughout the week, but I'm not dumb.
That's true. Ohio is known for its chemtrails.
It gets better. I could go on. They were born from the blood of Uranus after he was castrated by Cronus. So,
oh boy, that's somebody's very specific fetish.
Somebody out there somewhere. Rule 34, as they say on the internet. Yeah, no, I mean, and what's funny about the giants in Greek mythology is they actually weren't giant at all. They were just, like you said, Tobias, they're beastly. Well, and that kind of seemed to morph and change over time. But the Titans were physically larger than the giants were. The giants were like human sized. So I don't know why we then went on to depict them as large. They really weren't. They were just really ugly. And then, of course, you already touched upon like Norse mythology and how it's definitely ingrained in there. And same kind of situation. They weren't necessarily large. Usually larger figures were authoritative figures, gods, right? They were physically large because largeness, definitely symbolizes power, of course. We all know that. The bigger you are, the more powerful you are, I guess, is what they say. But, here we are. And then, this kind of leads into a little bit more modern day with the Nephilim. And I know you're hearing all my sighs. I know you are. Because I just hate the Nephilim so much.
Well, I've heard that they really like you, so I imagine they are devastated by this news.
Good. Fuck
If
their
you listen
feelings.
everybody, if you just listen very carefully right now, you can hear the sound of Nephilim weeping in the distance as this is them first hearing that Asher's does not like them.
That's what they get. That's what they get for being the bastards of angels and mortal women.
They're the bad boys of angels and mortal women.
Yeah, but they've
I'm
got
just
like
kidding.
extra fingers and toes and stuff, and
That's very ableist.
damn it! I was trying
I
to
was on
avoid
Team Nephilim.
ableism earlier in the episode, and now here I am. I fucked up. Damn it. Yeah,
Gotcha.
that was just inevitable. It was just destined to happen this time.
Right.
No, I'm so frustrated by Nephilim, and it isn't their fault. It's people's fault. It's just because in the world of cryptozoology, we hear Nephilim a lot. A lot. People claim
Right.
that like Bigfoot are Nephilim. Any cryptid, pretty much. Anything. Aliens, they're all Nephilim. And that just doesn't make sense. And here's why it doesn't make sense. Because the angels came down, they bred with mortal women, with human women, and they created babies. And God didn't like what the fuck was going on down there. He thought that was an abomination, and that should not happen. And so what did God do? God flooded the entire planet to get rid of all the Nephilim. Okay. Not just the Nephilim. There was a lot of other stuff going on, but that was one key point in the whole flood story that you Christians cling on to so much. So then for you to turn around and say that God fucked up and Bigfoot, a Nephilim, is still roaming around to this day, I think God's going to be pretty pissed off at you. Like, that doesn't really fall in line with your religion there, bud.
Well, especially because that would be Old Testament God, and it did not take much to set that guy off. He really had a hair fucking trigger.
Yeah,
So.
right. You do a little ass play, right? Little finger in the butt. He's done. He's not having it.
Oh, yeah. No, you're getting fucking smote for sure.
Killing all your children. Every single one.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it rocks my fucking world that that you cling so much to your religion to explain some of these unexplained things, that you use it, but you don't even know your own stories.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna use this opportunity for a callback, because I feel about this the same way I feel about explaining the Sandown Clown as a fairy. You can't explain one mystery with another. You just fucking can't. So I think that there is some interesting testimony in the Bible when it comes to interactions with angels. I think there are some very interesting claims that have been made, obviously in that work and throughout history. But that doesn't get us any closer, I think, to understanding precisely what an angel is, or what the phenomenon that we call angels is, rather, And so trying to use that as an explanation for something else. Again, like, do angels represent a specific mystery? I think yes. Does Bigfoot also represent a specific mystery? Also yes. But you cannot use one to explain the other, because we don't understand what either of them really is or what they really represent. And that's my frustration with trying to use things like the Nephilim to explain modern cryptid sightings. Because to me, the likelier explanation would be that there is a history of some phenomenon that has been with us throughout the entirety of human existence, and that phenomenon, whatever it is responsible for stories of the Nephilim and for stories of Bigfoot. So there's like a third option that is precisely neither of them that has given cause to stories of both of them. That's where I would fall on it. Or, like, I'm always open to changing my mind with new evidence, but gun to my head right this second, that's where I would land.
If cryptids are Nephilim, here's your possibility. Okay. One, either here's your only possibility. If they are Nephilim, then God failed when he flooded the world. And if God failed, what the fuck does that mean for y'all? Okay, because he's supposed to not be a failure, but he is. So, just saying. I don't want to follow a failure of a god, and I feel sorry for anybody who does. Anyway, I feel very strongly about this because there are some people that have gotten very mean with me over it.
No,
because
I get it. I know.
You start making them question their own beliefs, and I get it. That's hard, and it's a psychological thing that you then have to, they have to face that, right?
Right.
But go to fucking therapy and figure that shit out. It's not my job. Just because I pointed it out doesn't mean it's my job to help you work through it.
Don't take that shit out on me. I ain't your therapist.
I'm not your therapist. So moving on from that topic, I hate it. It's dumb. I guess if you have evidence, let's see it. But
again, I think it's fascinating, but not for the reason that most people in cryptozoology do. I find the Bible really, really, really interesting from the perspective of somebody who's approaching it as in unreliable narrative surrounding phenomena that is very similar to the same unexplained phenomena that is still widely reported today. Because you can get everything from Bigfoot to UFOs out of the Bible. Like, it's wild.
You can.
So
I agree. Yeah,
I find it interesting.
You're going to keep getting juice out of that orange the more you squeeze it. That's for sure. Religious text is interesting. There is even a one of the Dead Sea Scrolls is the Book of Giants. Which the Dead Sea Scrolls is kind of a weird thing. I'll be honest, I really don't know too much about it. I know a little bit because I feel like we all know about the Book of Enoch, but basically, sure. A very long time ago, some lost chapters of the Bible were found, and they do check out for the time period that the Bible was written, but for whatever reason, they've just been kind of cast aside and not included in the Bible. It's weird. It's almost like religion's created to control a certain demographic of people, but what do I know?
What? Yeah, we probably don't need to get on a huge soapbox about organized religion, but
sure.
If anybody is wondering, I guess just like broad strokes, what my opinion is, I think that spirituality is very important, and that is an intrinsic
it's your business, right?
Part.
It's not my business.
Yeah, and it's an intrinsic part of being a human, of humanity, and I also think that you don't need a middleman. So any person or organization who claims to have control over your spirituality or claims that you need them to fully access your spirituality or to have a personal relationship with God is not worth listening to. And so, as you may have surmised, organized religion is not for me, by and large.
What do you think about the Dead Sea Scrolls? Just because I don't know if we'll ever actually cover it. We'll see.
We could. It's interesting what was left out of the canonical Bible, right? And it's largely it's political. It's for political reasons, and then over time, the Bible has been edited and re-edited for more political reasons, and so it's difficult, I think, for me to take it literally, or even to take it super seriously, in terms of something that should be dictating my personal spirituality. Because again, as I already said, like spirituality is very personal, and nobody can dictate that to you, and nobody but you should have control over it for yourself. Um, but I think that there's some very interesting stuff in there, which I've already touched on, so we don't have to spend a lot more time talking about it. But I think that there is value in all of those works historically, in basically just tracing some of the same weird shit that continues to happen today. And in reading these experiences of people who lived thousands of years ago, who, if they were describing what they saw today, you would call it a UFO or fucking Mothman or whatever, but back then it was an angel or a demon or something.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I
what I
think,
find interesting.
yeah, the Dead Sea Scrolls are like the woo of the Bible, right? Which is, the Bible's already pretty fucking crazy, but like they're really out there.
Right.
And I dig that, right? Like I'm super into that. But because I'm not super into religion, especially not Abrahamic religions, I can only get so far into it. So, but it's interesting nonetheless. And I think people should definitely, take the afternoon and Google some of it. It's pretty neat. If you don't want to go the full mile and read them, I don't blame you. But it's cool stuff. And like I said, there's giants in there too. A whole book about them. It's called the Book of Giants.
Right.
So anyway, back to the topic at hand, again, that's kind of where cryptozoology comes into play with this, and kind of the start and stop of it. You got some people that claim that Bigfoot is related to us in some type of way, closer than it is related to an undiscovered primates. Or they have a very, I don't know, I guess they think that Bigfoot's some type of interdimensional or spiritual thing and is also a giant, and giants are also interdimensional or spiritual or something in some aspect, which is whatever. But the big thing about giants is that it has certainly become a hot topic conspiracy in today's world, but not because it really started in today's world. This is actually a pretty old conspiracy, and I figured we would probably spend majority of the time talking about that. So,
Sure.
I'm going to not try to butcher too much of this, but in Nevada in 1911, something really, really neat happened. And what happened was we had a bunch of science people go and excavate a cave called Lovelock Cave, like I said, in Nevada in 1911. And some of their discoveries from that expedition, there was some prior to that, but really this is where things kind of kicked off and became big. Amongst some of the things that they had found were mummified remains of, well, what they were calling at the time in the media, the CTE-Ka, okay, which is basically a term for pretty much giants that the local Native American tribe had kind of had ingrained in their culture that they had talked about for many, many years. They discussed a separate tribe of people that lived inside of this cave system, they described them as red-haired giant cannibals. I guess cannibals because they ate each other, because that's what cannibalism means. It doesn't mean eating humans like a lot of people think it does. But either way, like they had, this whole kind of story behind, these strange gigantic beings. And when they did this, they did this exploration into this cave, they did seemingly at the time find evidence of these giants humans. Nonetheless, they allegedly found gigantic skeletons. Again, at least this is what the media was pushing out there. Okay. So they did in fact find, I believe, one of the human remains, or, and again, this is canon. They did find one that was over 6 feet tall. I think it was 6'6", which is a pretty big person. But they would take these discoveries that they would have, and the media would just fucking run with it. Tobias, you're great at this. Tell us again. I know you've done it before, but tell us again about newspapers in 1911.
Oh, they just made shit up. They didn't even care. Yeah, all the time. And actually, when it comes to giants, they had been making shit up since the 19th century, and I mean like the first part of the 19th century, because giants in America were a very popular belief held by uh, a wide variety of white European settlers.
Yes.
Who all wanted to believe that there was no way the indigenous people could have created all of the very impressive archaeological discoveries that people were making, like enormous earthen mounds and things.
Mm-hmm.
And thus it must have been white-skinned giants, because they're the only people who could have possibly been competent enough
Why they had to be white?
create this stuff.
We all know.
Racism.
Just
good old-fashioned racism. That's all it was. And so these stories had been popular in the American media for, again, 100 years at this point. Which, when somebody says, something happened in like 1812, and then they tell you something happened in let's say 11, for instance, like this story, I think people don't necessarily make that connection that is 100 goddamn years, because when we're looking that far into the past, we have this tendency to compress it, right? As though like 1812 and 1911 were just a couple of years apart, but that's a whole goddamn century. So we're 100 years into colonizers saying that these giant white people were responsible for all of this stuff, instead of the indigenous people who actually fucking made it at this point. And there are countless examples of this, fucking countless. You know what? I don't want to distract from what we're currently talking about, which is the 1911 case, but we should circle back and talk about the 1885 Moberly Lost City at some point, because it is also comedy gold. But yes, that pretty much sums it up. So for everybody who dozed off there for a second, because I just assume that is what happens when I get too nerdy about this shit and start to rant about it and really get into it. In summation, newspapers fucking lied. They lied all the time, constantly. They didn't care. They thought it was funny.
Well, and you talk about the 100-year difference, right? And we're a little over 100 years now here in 2025, and we know, right, that even now, another 100 years later, we've come such a long way. No publication ever makes shit up. Ever. Nothing that you read on the internet is fake. Ever. Right? So, like, clearly, this was just a silly sign of the times, and not something that we just tend to do over and over again for profit.
There are still people today who believe in the myth of Caucasian giants who lived here and are responsible for things like large earthen mounds and other achievements actually created by the indigenous people. So it's not as widespread. Like, it was so widespread in the 19th century that Abraham Lincoln was buying into it. I'm not making that up.
He's like, I could have been one of them, maybe.
Right? He was a tall guy. No, but that's how widespread it was in the 19th century. This was a common belief, at least among people who considered themselves like relatively well-read, right? So if you were somebody interested in anthropology and archaeology, then it would, like, you would have heard of this, and it wouldn't be unusual for you to entertain it.
Yeah.
So it was a whole fucking thing. Like, seriously, it was a whole thing. And you would not get laughed out of a room in the 19th century for saying that you believed that giants once ruled this continent.
And not without complete fault either. It's not like they just went, oh, that sounds right, that checks out. And we'll kind of get into some of the evidence that they had at the time that, kind of fueled that fire a little bit more. But you can't, Tobias, you can't be like, well, we can't talk about this one thing that one time. What the fuck is the Moberly Lost? Is that what you said? Moberly Lost City?
Oh, yeah. So sorry, I wanted to make sure that you were done with your the 1911 discovery or newspaper hoax,
sure,
or whatever. But yeah, if you want to talk about the 1885 Moberly, Missouri Lost City hoax, we could talk about it a little bit. So long story short, on April 8th, 1885. The Evening Chronicle in St. Louis published a story about how a lost city was discovered several hundred feet underneath Moberly, Missouri, and within that lost underground city was discovered the skeleton of a humanoid, seemingly a human, next to a large fountain, and that skeleton was roughly estimated to be 3 times the size of a normal man. Ooh, and none of it was real, obviously, but it's a whole long ass article. They wrote an entire short story basically about this underground city and the fucking giants that must have lived there, and then somebody went and followed up with them, and they were just like, oh yeah, nah dude, we made that all up. That was an April joke. So yeah, so April Fools was a thing, but you didn't have to just pull pranks on April 1st. You could do it anytime. And so newspapers the entire month of fucking April, right, would just make stuff up, and then if you asked them about it, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, no, that was just an April story. We just made that up. There's nothing, there's no truth to that." And that kind of shit has contributed quite a bit to current belief in ancient race of giants, because it's that kind of reporting that has led to everything from, the lost city of Moberly, fucking Missouri. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'll hear about it if I'm not, of course. But you know what? I don't give a shit. Moberly, Missouri. Have an easier to pronounce name if you want me to say it right.
Yeah, fucking
anyway.
Moberlites. Yeah. Moberlinians. I don't know what they call themselves there, but
I don't know. Assholes, I guess. I don't know. That was really harsh. I don't know you, Moberly, Missouri. You're probably really nice.
I mean, they do live in Missouri, so
yeah. No, I've been there.
Actually, I like Missouri. It's pretty cool.
It is actually fine. It's a fine state. Anyway, yeah, it's led to that, but also to things like the conspiracy that the Smithsonian is destroying giant skeletons or hiding evidence of giants, all kinds of shit we have today because of that.
Well, I was just going to say, that's what we're leading into, with the 1911
right,
flap craze. I don't know what to call it. Hype.
Flap craze
hype. Why not? The giants,
sure.
They're here, or they were. So again, it wasn't really without evidence, because here's the thing about it is that, in the 19th century, they would find bones of stuff, massive fucking bones of stuff. And they may find them even where they also have artifact or evidence of human dwelling, right? So if you did go into a cave, like you might find things like primitive bowls or, clothing or weapons or whatever, and also gigantic fucking bones, huge fucking bones. But those bones, this is what we did at the time. And, in the 19th century, we didn't take it for DNA testing to figure out what it was. We went, well, that kind of looks like, there was this dead guy that I found. And that kind of looks like what his femur looked like. So that's got to be a human femur, right? It's just 3 times the size. Meanwhile, it's from a mastodon or a cow.
Right.
Or a horse, or whatever. And we're like, oh, yeah, it's definitely human. That's, again, it's not without some type of reasoning behind it. It's just that it was bad science. And so, not that, scientists ever said, like, this is absolute fact, but like Tobias said, definitely more willing to entertain the idea because, well, we were finding giant bones in these areas, and then when all the natives have stories of giants or whatever, which again, stories of giants date back to all of humanity. We've always had them for whatever reason. They're like, put 2 and 2 together and there you have it. So what ends up happening then, within the early 1900s is that, yes, the Smithsonian does get involved with these studies, right? So there's a claim somewhere in a newspaper or whatever saying there was a dig at this location. Somebody found something big and it was, 15 feet. It's a 15-foot human. So an actual scientist would go and check out that claim. And then they'd find out that, like, yeah, there was like a mummy or something found, but it was only like 5'11",
Right.
It wasn't actually a giant human. And this happened over and over and over and over again. But that doesn't sell papers, right? That doesn't sell media. That doesn't get asses in the seats, like we were talking about earlier. It doesn't. And so this is what tends to happen. Here's this article. Oh my gosh, there's a 15-foot tall human being. This guy came, though, this guy from the Smithsonian. And he says it's not relevant. Well, that's because he took it and destroyed the evidence or locked it away or whatever the case is. Your mileage may vary, but like you can pretty much repeat this over and over and over. Meanwhile, at the time, people were getting fucking weird. And I love that for people, right? Things like the circus were huge. Right?
P.T. Barnum was around.
P.T. Barnum, right? Sideshows. It was a very innovative scientific time. And so entertainers would utilize that and talk about all these strange, mysterious things that we're finding, right? I mean, like I said, people were getting weird. And I love that for them. But they didn't have the proper means to fully investigate stuff. So P.T. Barnum
can't.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, P.T. Barnum would come along, and guess what he would do? He would create giant skeletons and then parade them the fuck around and show them to people.
Yes.
So how are you going to tell a person who's reading in the fucking news all the time that there's giant skeletons and has seen one with their own eyes that they don't exist?
Right. No, he literally did. He created he wanted to buy the Cardiff giant, but then the guy wouldn't sell it to him. So he just made his own and said that the original was fake, which is fucking hilarious in classic P.T. Barnum.
Yeah.
But even beyond that, like he created an 18-foot tall giant skeleton and in a separate giant creation incident and or in endeavor, I guess. And he just charged people money to see him. It cost you $0.25 or 50 cents or something, and you can come see the fucking giant. What's interesting, though, is this the religious angle, the Nephilim, right? Like, this shit is not new, like this was already well established at this point. So if you're sitting there asking yourself, yeah, but still, how did people believe in fucking giants? it's because you had people writing books like American Antiquities, and this book is written in 1833, and it really describes how the original race native to North America was the lost race mentioned in the book of Genesis, and how they were killed off by and forgive me for saying this, but this is how the book described them, and that saying that they were killed off by savages. So you can thank Josiah Priest for that specifically, all the way back in 1833, seeding the idea of the Nephilim into the American consciousness, and that would eventually spread into everything from crazy racist theories about the original inhabitants of North America being enormous white people to fucking Bigfoot. So thanks a lot, Dick. Yeah, that fucking guy.
And it just never goes away because we have this, since the 1911 wave, this just continues to happen, right? There's a story of a giant mummy or a giant skeleton or a giant, I don't know. I think there's a story about giant shoes at one point found. I mean, whatever it is, right? Giant chair, and it's wash, rinse, repeat. The news kicks it out there. Somebody actually goes and verifies what really was discovered, and sometimes it's still very interesting, but it's not an actual giant. So. But of course, that guy that they said, he's with the Smithsonian, so we know it's a cover up, and it just continues, over and over and over and over again. And let me tell you, maybe I could kind of almost buy it. Maybe I could kind of almost buy it in 2025. But there is fucking absolutely no reason at all in the 1900s why they would want to cover up biblical proof. At all.
Right.
Like, there's no reason for it. I mean, like I said, I kind of almost get it now, not totally, because let's be real here. We're still creating laws here in America that are drenched in Christianity. Okay. So let's be real with each other here. However, 100 years ago, they were absolutely not trying to cover up facts from the Bible. Like, what?
Right. No, well, of course not. Well, and the Smithsonian, it really had pretty thoroughly debunked the idea of North American giants prior to the turn of the 20th century. It was 1894 when ethnologist Cyrus Thomas, working for the Smithsonian, had finished compiling his report on the mound explorations. That's what it was called. And I mean, this is like a 700-page work of how no white people didn't do this. It was the indigenous people, because of course it fucking was, you racist. In 1894, so that sets up the Smithsonian like right there for everybody who has in a continued interest. Let's face it, a monetary interest probably in continuing this belief. That sets up the Smithsonian right there as bad guys. Like, at that point, they're like, okay, well, we have to spin them as the bad guys here, because if we just let people believe in their careful fucking research and due diligence, then they're going to see through our bullshit, and we can't fucking have that, can we? So they have to be conspiratorial fucking bad guys, or we are all sunk.
And here's the thing about it, is that, again, here in 2025, we have science now. Like, we understand that anybody of the size that giants claim to be, it isn't biologically possible. The human body could not withstand being a certain size and beyond. And we know that how? Because there have been real life instances of giant humans, and they have a lot of problems. A lot of problems
so
physically.
many. Yeah.
And, just because they are large, and so we're kind of aware of that. And that's kind of the argument with Bigfoot itself, right? There cannot be a gigantic primate because it physically would not be able to move the way. And that's why, like, the dermal ridges and stuff that Dr. Jeff Meldrum talks about in the foot cast and all that is such a big deal, because the entire shape of the foot has to change in order to withstand that type of weight. And that's a whole nother topic for another day if we really want to get back into Bigfoot again. We don't today. But when you're talking about a 15-foot tall human, they just wouldn't survive. Like, it's just not possible. It's not possible for them to have the same skeletal structure as you and I and be able to sustain their body at 15 feet. So I did want to, kind of come off of like the conspiracy, and I did kind of want to talk about, giant humans. As a matter of fact, I wanted to talk about one in particular, the tallest person to ever live. It was Robert Wadlow, who stood at a whopping 8 feet 11 inches tall at the time of his death.
You know where he's from?
I do.
Alton, Illinois.
And, Tobias, that's where he's buried.
Yeah. So go there to see Robert Wadlow's grave, and then swing by Haunted America.
Exactly. When's that? What date is that?
June 27th and 28th, I'm pretty sure. Because I am terrible at this. Yes, 27th and 28th.
Go see the famous grave of Robert Wadlow. He was buried in like an over 10-foot long coffin. It's a pretty wild story, actually.
He's 8'11".
8'11". Yeah.
That's enormous. Yeah.
You can't even comprehend 8'11" unless you're standing. I mean, you can go look at pictures and stuff. Everybody looks like a child compared to him, and these are adults. Yeah. But they're not. He's just really fucking tall. But Robert Wadlow, he died at 22 years old.
Yep.
And
tragic.
And it was kind of, he died of an infection. Okay. He ended up getting an infection because he had to wear braces on his legs. He had to, or he wouldn't be able to walk. And was potentially, had he lived a little bit further down the line, would have ended up in a wheelchair, would have deteriorated further. Probably would have still grew because his condition that he had caused him to never stop growing. But he got an infection from one of the braces, and his body just couldn't fight it off, and so he succumbed to it at 22. Anybody at 22 should not be dying from an infection unless they already have something seriously fucking wrong with them, right? That's not normal. You should be able to overcome something like infection. But again, it's just because being that massive, like, you can't sustain. And we have people alive today, that are in the 7 feet. They're tall people. It's not like it's completely unheard of for giant skeletons to be out there, but we know the bigger they are, the harder and younger they fall. That's right. Just the facts. And that's something that we will continue to be able to replicate throughout, over and over and over again as we continue to have giant humans. Like, because that's what happens,
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There are a number of comorbidities that exist at that size. So, the unfortunate reality is you couldn't have a race of human giants because they wouldn't be able to form a society. They would all be dying too young. They in fact, it never would have formed in the first fucking place, because they just would have died before being able to breed in those kinds of numbers.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, and so, I don't know. I'm definitely willing to keep an open mind on the topic because I hear what everybody's already saying because we've said it multiple times. Giants have been a part of human history as long as we've had humans. And so there's got to be some truth in there somewhere. I know there's some of you that think that way. And it's okay for you to think that way. Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Sure. But where's the evidence? Where's the data? I need that data. I can't just I guess I could. I've said it before. Belief is a choice. I could be like, oh yeah, sure, but I'm gonna choose not to with this one. How about that?
Yeah. Well, there are other possibilities outside of there having to be some undiscovered race of enormous human beings. Of course we are interested in the size of things. Think about how we interact with the world or the universe perceptually. We seemingly exist in 3 dimensions. We can't fly or anything. So yeah, we are very interested in big stuff. We always have been. And the idea that it would work its way into our stories should come as no surprise to anybody. Furthermore, considering how close quarters fighting, like melee combat, considering the part that played in cultures across the world for millennia, being big and strong, these are huge advantages. And so of course we would be interested in that and obsessed with that in our stories. There are weight classes in fighting for a fucking reason, and it's not arbitrary. It's not for fun. It's because size and strength are huge advantages in fighting. And so I don't see why it wouldn't make sense to people that, much like, say, today, if you are interested in telling a story, you might talk about, let's say, a man who is the epitome of human athletic prowess, is stronger, faster, tougher than anybody, and he just happens to wear red, white, and blue and carry a cool round shield. Okay, yeah, that's Captain America, But those are the stories we tell now, and they're not so different than the stories people have been telling throughout human history. And so when they were telling their stories, why wouldn't they have done the same thing that we do today, where we take the qualities that we find attractive or just interesting or frightening or whatever, and exaggerate them for a more interesting story, for a wilder tale? Of course they would fucking do that. What makes us think that we're so special that we're the only people who did that and everybody else was just telling the literal truth all the time? That doesn't make any sense. That's ridiculous. I'm not saying that every fairy tale and piece of folklore out there is made up or has to be exaggerated. But when you look at things like stories of giants, clearly, even if there is some historical fact there, embellishments can be made. And in the retelling of certain stories, proportions will be exaggerated and characters will become larger until they are larger than life. And we know that's what people are like because we're like that now. So why wouldn't people be like that 2,000 fucking years ago? We're the same. We're the same now as we were back then. So yeah, of course we have stories of giants. Why wouldn't we? What the fuck, people? This isn't some mystery. It's just human nature.
Well, I'm going to blow your mind. You ready for this?
Sure.
This is my theory. Really, you're going to be like, wow, you're so right. Well, here's the thing. Scientifically, right now, we recognize that humans overall we've actually gotten larger. We have gotten larger, right? And
we're
so,
getting better.
Yeah, exactly. Over the last 150 years, we have grown taller and wider. We're getting bigger. And here's my theory. Here's what I think. I think that way back when, during the biblical times and such, during the old old Greece, we didn't have giants. They weren't giant. We were really small. We were only like 2 feet tall at most, And over time, we have just grown a little bit and a little bit and a little bit to match those giant skeletons of 5'11" that we keep finding. And so, I mean, technically there were giants, and we know this for fact because, like people say, again, there's always truth, right, to fiction. There's always some truth in it. Have you ever seen the Smurfs? Like, clearly, right, clearly that's based on us and our ancestors, I'm just saying, that makes the most sense to me.
Is that why we have blue balls? Because we came from Smurfs?
That's why. Exactly. Yep. And it's slowly being phased out over time, right? And so, and the Smithsonian, they're trying to cover that up. They don't want people to know that we used to be tiny and we used to live in mushroom houses and we worked together as communities. They hate that. So they're trying to erase it. So they're destroying the average skeletons that they find, or what they call average, right? But we all know the truth. Okay? Right. We all know it. So.
Oh, mustache twirling villains at the Smithsonian, preventing us from living out our Smurf dreams. Yeah. You heard it here first, people. This is groundbreaking research. Just amazing.
It's the only thing that makes sense to me. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Real talk. If I could go live in a mushroom, like with a community of generally good people that I really get along with, I would in a heartbeat. Oh man, I would do that so fast.
Yeah, but with just one woman.
Well, yeah, okay. We need more than one woman.
I mean,
for lots of reasons.
Right. Just for practicality. You can't be inbreeding, and that's how you get inbreeding, right? So, just saying. I mean, that's what I think. I want to take this time to mention that this episode has been brought to you by our wonderful patrons over on Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
Groundbreaking scientific theories, right? Really paving the way in the weird world. Brought to you by our patrons, Jen, our patron, Tommy, my best friend, Will, and Alan. Thank you guys for joining the Patreon. You can too for as little as $2 a month. You could have had this whole episode ad free if you just signed up for $2. For $2 at patreon.com/WednesdaysTalk. Get on it.
Can't beat that.
You can't beat that. We're going to actually have a whole sit-down meeting here. The last Thursday of the month, every month, we're going to do a meeting, and you guys could tell us what you think about giants, or, what you think about the potential of our Smurf euphoria being ripped away from us. I'm sure you have opinions on it, right? Now that you know the truth, you got to have some opinions. You got to want to share them with us. So make sure you sign up for that, Just saying.
Yeah. That's only $5 a month, right? That's
only $5 a month, right? It's you can't even get a meal at a fast food place for $5 anymore. I don't think.
Oh,
I don't know.
You wish you could get a meal at a fast food fucking place for $5. You wish you could get one for $10.
Right? Remember when you could go to Taco Bell with $5 and you'd eat like a fucking king?
Oh, absolutely. You'd have food. You'd have leftovers.
Yeah. So you could eat like a king with us over on the Patreon. Just saying.
Right. But it's like mind food for your brain.
Yes. Mind food for your brain. Tobias, do you have any closing remarks about giants or the history of giants or whatever, or the Smurfs even, if you want to?
Sure. Well, we all love the Smurfs, but that's not why we're here today. We can have a separate episode about little people, and we should actually, because that's just as entertaining to me as giants or stories of diminutive folk. Honestly, when it comes to giants, I think that this is just yet another instance that emphasizes the importance of understanding the source of the information that you are receiving. So the obvious lessons here to me are that first one, of course, always know where the information that you are consuming comes from. Understand its reliability. It's not difficult to go online yourself and look up the actual legitimate sources for most of the stories that you're hearing specifically about giants. And in doing so, you will come to find that everything that we have just said is true. They are a combination of religious beliefs and some racist beliefs and really poor form from newspapers playing practical jokes. And that's kind of how we got in modern society to where we are today with giants. But then, of course, on the grander scale of humanity, right, and human history, I don't think that there's much mystery there, although it is still extremely fascinating because just as I described before, I think that the lesson here is one of storytelling and human nature and understanding that we are no different today. We are the same species in 2025 as we were in year zero, right? There is no practical difference in our species other than the differences and qualities of sort of convenience. Like, yeah, we're probably better fed. We have more, I guess, organized education, whatever. But the reality is, as a species, we are no different today than we were in the time of Christ. And the idea that we're the only ones who make up stories and everybody back then was just telling you literally what they were seeing with no embellishment is crazy. That's insane. That doesn't make any goddamn sense. And so I think when you apply that to giants, you can see how the remaining stories outside of the modern tales, which have largely been debunked, to be fair, at the risk of being controversial, have entirely been debunked. You can still see that there is in easy, simple, sensical explanation for the stories of enormous humans that have existed throughout history. That doesn't make it less interesting. It shouldn't be disenchanting your world. There's still plenty of weird shit out there. This just doesn't have to be one of them,
Well, I'm just saying, look, we all know about the Blue Man Group. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, if you're going to try to tell me that is not a clue, right, to the Smurf idea, I don't know what to tell you.
Blue Man Group is proof that we descended from Smurfs. I knew it.
Yep, exactly. And they're
Blue
not
Man Group, Blue Balls,
and
the Blues.
The Blues, exactly. And unfortunately, the Blue Man Group, they're all mute, and it's because the Smithsonian have cut their tongues out, so they don't talk. Right? That's what's going on. I mean,
wow. If you spell the Smithsonian backwards, what do you get if you happen to be hammered and illiterate? Gargamel.
I knew it. See?
That's right. There's a level of intoxication you can reach where trying to spell the Smithsonian backwards will get you to Gargamel.
Of course.
So
yeah, because Gargamel's not like a real name, right? Come on, it's got to be Smithsonian backwards.
Right, if you're super, super drunk.
I've never met anybody named Gargamel before. Have you?
No.
Exactly.
Where are they hiding? At the Smithsonian? I knew it.
No, Tobias, you definitely nailed it. It's a lot. Again, I'm willing to entertain this idea, folks. I just need some proof.
Sure.
Somewhere.
I would fucking love giants to be real. Are you kidding me?
Right.
That would be awesome.
That would be super cool, but we're just either we're just not there yet scientifically because we just haven't found them, or it just was never a thing. I mean, those are options, right? So
yeah.
And right now, it's looking like it was never a thing, and I hate to be the one to say that to you guys. I really do, but I don't fault you for choosing to believe necessarily, because it's a neat idea. I get it. It's pretty cool. I'd love to have a giant buddy. That'd be sweet. But here we are. So I don't know. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up this episode, and we'll see you guys back here next Wednesday.
Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.